come back to this for just a second. Okay. Wrong one. So I'm going to put it down two. So here they've focused with this graph on the percentage of Americans mentioning the economy as the nation's most important problem. And so you can see how that has changed over the years. You had the collapse in '08, and then a lot of people now are saying that it's more of a problem than they used to back in the early part of the aughts, or whatever you want to call that decade. And Gallup is really cool because in addition to just giving you the summary data, they will show recent trends, so you can actually see how the numbers have changed over the last few months. And you can, I believe that they did this open-ended, and so they really summarized a lot of people's responses. So a lot of people just said, the economy, generally speaking. And then other people focused on more specific aspects of the economy, like unemployment is the biggest problem, the federal budget deficit, fuel and oil prices, and so on. And then to get the number of people who report this as a problem, they just sum them up to get the net economic problems.
Are those percentages? 5%, 70%?
Yeah, I think I think so. Yeah, that's percentage of Americans mentioning the economy as the most important problem. And then there are non-economic problems that were answered too, because remember, they've just asked, what's the most important problem? They didn't ask anything specifically about the economy. Right? And so then there's all these other things that are not directly related to the economy anyway. And so you can see, lots of people are giving lots of different answers. And with a lot of these, you only see 1% or fewer than 1% of the population saying that these are the most important problems. So that little asterisk on some of these means less than 1/2 of 1%.
At the bottom where it says 146%, what is that?
That's a good question. Because usually you shouldn't have over 100%, but yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. It might just be more problems reported, but I really couldn't say. Now, we might be able to figure that out. I don't want to spend too much class time doing that.
Were there multiple choices? Maybe, like more than one?
Yeah, possibly. Like I said, I'm not sure. And they don't provide a whole lot of detail on this one. Then they go into politics a little bit more down there. But a lot of their scales are really good because they will give you additional information. Like this one looks at positivity and optimism in thriving U.S. states. And so if you look down at the bottom of this one, they give a lot of detail on exactly what they were measuring, how they were operationally defining thriving. And some of this stuff isn't showing up because I don't have the right plugins. But this is really cool because on a lot of theirs, they'll tell you all about their survey methods, which is all the stuff we've been talking about. So you can see they say that results are based on telephone interviews, a random sample of 352,840 adults. Gallup's a big organization, man. Age 18 and older, selected using random digit dial sampling, so they're randomly dialing phone numbers. I thought at some point in here they mentioned, oh yeah, interviews are conducted with respondents on landline telephones and cellular phones. Yeah, with interviews conducted in Spanish for respondents who are primarily Spanish speaking. So they just give you a ton of detail so that you know exactly how these data were collected. I wish they had this on the first one that we looked at, but I thought that this was a great example. And so this is the type of thing that you'd see written up in a paper that was being published on this type of stuff. So if you want to cruise around Gallup's website sometime and look at this, it gives you a great idea of how to do a survey well, because they're really diligent most times. Okay, let me just go back here. So any questions about the most important problem type of question? Yeah. Now, sometimes researchers will create surveys that are designed to measure how much people remember about something or how much people know about something. And in these types of surveys, it can be a good idea to have a don't know or DK alternative, in which if people honestly feel like they don't know the answer to a question, they can't remember what you're asking, they can say, I don't know. And that can be some useful information. However, it's not a good idea to use that on every single item on your scale, because the concern is that some participants might overuse it. So by having that as an alternative, sometimes people see that as an out. So if they don't feel like they want to sit down and think deeply and try to come up with the right answer, they'll just check, oh, I don't know. And another kind of drawback to using the don't know option is that it reduces the researcher's ability to measure implicit memory. Does anybody know what implicit memory is?
Implied.
Yeah, sort of. So,
Isn't it like, I can't remember implicit, but isn't it like when you remember, like riding a bike, you always remember how to do that or something like that?
yeah, so it's when you're talking about how to do something that's procedural memory, which is a type of implicit memory.
Isn't implicit memory something you can recall without having to be prompted with like choices?
Not necessarily. I mean, that's just free recall is what you're talking about there, I think. But implicit memory is knowledge of which you aren't consciously aware. So sometimes you know things. You know, there are neural pathways that are present in your brain, but you're just not consciously aware that you know that information. And so if you guessed, you might get the right answer. But if people are given a don't know alternative, then they would say that they don't know, when really if they had guessed, that would provide some useful evidence. Right? And so one thing that I've done when I've created this type of a survey, because I actually use something like this in my dissertation, is to give people a certainty scale. And I might have done this on some of our labs before too. But rather than just giving them the options of did you see this before or not, or a don't know option, you can have people rate, you know, I definitely saw this before, I might have seen this before, I probably didn't, I definitely didn't see this before. And so you don't absolutely have to use the certainty data, you can just collapse it into either they said that in some way, shape, or form they saw it before or they didn't. And then that can make them feel a little bit more comfortable giving an answer, even if they feel like they're not sure. So that'll allow you to get at some of that implicit kind of memory. Now, let's see. Of course, a lot of surveys will also add on demographic information. And I'm sure you all know what demographic information is. It's just some basic identifying data, not necessarily named. Usually we want to keep these things kind of confidential. But things like age, income, race, sex, things that you think might be related to the constructs that you're measuring. It might be useful to know. So sometimes researchers will collect this data because they want to make sure that they have a representative sample. Sometimes they think that it's going to be related to their dependent variables. And sometimes we just have to collect this because if you're doing research on a grant, the grant requires you to report how many people from different groups were included in your research. Now, one important thing to know about including demographic information is that you usually want to place it at the end of your survey. And you saw this on the SOIS. It was asking, after it had people do all the ratings, it asked, what class are you in? What grade do you expect to get in this class? And there's a good reason to do that at the end rather than at the beginning, and that is that there's this concern that that demographic information might prime certain concerns. Like if you asked at the beginning of the SOIS, what grade do you expect to get in this class, and people start thinking about their performance and think, yeah, I'm probably going to get a D, then they might give the instructor more negative ratings than if they provided that information after they've already given the ratings. And you can see this in other types of research too. So, have I talked about the stereotype threat research in here before? When people are reminded of these certain stereotypes against their group that causes them to feel some anxiety and it makes them perform worse. So, what's that?
I learned about that in my child development class. I did on like standardized testing and stuff. And you know, like for minorities, you shouldn't really ask, or you shouldn't ask the race or whatever, because then it just reminds them of how people say they're not going to do well or whatever, and then they tend to do worse on the test. Yeah,
that's exactly right. So you do have to be careful about at which point in your survey you ask about these things for that exact reason. Now, let's see, we've got just a little under 10 minutes left. I think we can finish this stuff up. Now,